Good day, strategy gamers. Welcome back to episode 14 of our War in the East 2 Let's Play series of the Stalingrad to Berlin scenario. This is going to be the first half of turn 8, where we'll do the air phase execution and the first half of our ground movements. And we'll also probably look at a couple of new mechanics throughout turn 8, both in this episode and in the next episode. So right off the bat, I actually just wanted to take a look and see what the weather situation is like, because we have been plagued for the last 5 turns now by air conditions that are literally either blizzard or heavy snowfall, and I have had a heavy reluctance to execute a large air campaign in those conditions. In my mind, it makes a lot more sense to build up our supply of airframes for clear skies to be able to really be the most effective. However, I understand from a gameplay perspective that may not be the most interesting to watch, this mechanic of the air war, when we're just kind of skipping past it for so many of these turns. So let's take a look at the weather map to see how things look. Right off the bat, we see that this is following what we expected, because this is similar to the forecast that we saw in the previous turn, where we are still expecting snowfall across our entire front. There are very few exceptions to that. Now, that said, let's look at the forecast for the next turn. Please don't riot, viewers. Everything will be okay. It turns out that I don't know how to read meteorological reports, and I saw this low pressure system over in France thinking, oh good, weather is moving left to right, and we will have clear skies soon. Instead, we are going to have blizzard conditions in our next turn, which means it's probably going to be at least another 4 episodes minimum until we get to really diving deep into the air war and the air campaign of War in the East 2. So apologies for that, but I don't think there's much we can do about the fact that there are heavy snow and blizzard-like conditions for our airframes. So in light of that, I've actually gone through and off-camera executed all of the orders we have been doing with our air armies to have them hold and clearing air directives. So I've already done all of that, and I'm now just going to execute the air directives. So that way it saves you a couple minutes of watching me click through and setting the stance of all these units. It looks like the AI did still choose to run some recon, which they have continued to do, and I don't have too much objection to, as they're only running them for 2 days out of the 7-day week. And it does give us a little bit of insight into where the German forces are and what they're planning to do with them. So 185 sorties will probably end with, and 32 losses. And I think this is representative when we're looking at our theater box for reserves. It was recon units that actually had the worst supply situation in terms of available airframes. You see that all of these losses and air phase executions were all these recon air directives. So with that, we now find ourselves in the ground movement phase of the turn. And I'm really looking forward to this next turn based off of some of the things we saw that happened on the front line and some of the decisions we're going to have to make. But I think one of the first most interesting ones is I wanted to show everyone that in the turn summary, we had noted that 131 units were on low supply, which means they have less than 75% supply status. The previous turn it was 48, and the turn before that it was 33, and the turn before that was about 40. So in this one turn, we have tripled the number of units that are on low supply, and quite unexpectedly. I mean, we ended turn 7, and we weren't sitting there going, yep, we're going to have supply issues next turn. One thing that we have known about is if we turn off the unit chips and look at the railroad status, what we have known about, this is something we've talked about quite a bit, is that near the Smolensk front, we have a number of rail lines that require rail repair. And when we look at our western front here, by Stalingrad and a few spots along our front line here, we again have the same situation where there's just not great rail lines. And then in the Caucasus region, it still gives me like the sweats every time I look at this. Look at this situation that we have down here in the Caucasus region as we move up north towards Rostov and west towards Crimea. So we know that we're bound to have some supply issues given we have so much of a rail network that needs to be repaired considering the rate at which we've been advancing. We have been pretty aggressive with pushing and the rate at which we've been taking territory from the German forces. So with that, I wanted to highlight that on the end of turn summary, you can actually select this supply alerts, and we're going to turn off railroad mode and turn back on the unit chips. And here it actually highlights the chip that has a unit with low supply, under strength, critical supply, low supply, critical supply. So that way you can see kind of geographically where are those units. So right off the bat, one area that really sticks out is the Stalingrad front. We see that we have a number of units here on the front line and a number of units that are on the southern defensive line of the Stalingrad encirclement. We also see that along this front line there are scattered a few units. I don't think there's anything here that's too terribly alarming. We've been very aggressive in pushing with these, so that may just actually be natural cause and due course as we make so many advances. Again, you look geographically at the map though, and you just look at it going, okay, in this area, I don't see any rail lines that are going to this entire pocket. Right, so it makes sense that we probably have some units in here that have some supply issues. As we move up, we see that really the largest concentration is in our Smolensk and Leningrad fronts, where this is probably representing, I would dare to venture, near 100 of the units that have the low supply situation out of the 131. And again, if we were to flip back to the rail mode, this makes sense. Right, look at this. That follows pretty closely with where we have these issues. So how do we deal with that, right? Well, one way would be to say, okay, with a lot of these units, we're going to be more conservative and we're not going to push offensively quite as hard. And there could be two reasons that we make that decision. One, because we are a less effective fighting force when we're on low supply. Right, so we're going to suffer more casualties. We're going to be successful less often. So that would be one reason to be more conservative in our ground movements. The second reason is to keep them where they are in the line, and in some cases even move them back off the front line to lower their consumption of supplies, of fuel, of ammunition. So when we've talked about this in a previous episode, that when these units are sitting here, let's just imagine this unit and this unit here, this German unit and our unit here, which is the 145th Rifle Division. I'm actually going to change the metaphor to the 27th Panzer Division, right? 27th Panzer, the 145th Rifle Division. Each hex is 10 miles, and this division has let's take a look here real quick. 9,000 men assigned to it. We can probably assume the Panzer Division is thereabouts 9,002. In a 10-mile radius, or excuse me, a 10-mile hex, kind of between these two, that's about 20,000 men. And given the theater conditions of World War II, and specifically the East Front, just because we're not attacking into their hex doesn't mean that there's not any fighting, right? There are still units digging foxholes. There are still units in the 145th Rifle Division out on patrol to try to capture an officer from the enemy line, to interrogate them, to try to get some recon by force, right? There's probably shelling back and forth, maybe mortars. snipers along the line, all of these different things, right? That takes up more supplies than sitting back here in the rear, just sitting on a rail line, right? Just in a bit of, not necessarily even refit status, but even if they're just sitting off the front, they will use less supplies. So that would be a second reason in which we may want to be more conservative, and we may want to just either hold or pull back a few units to try to regain their strength. And now we come to the point of why I think this episode is going to be so interesting. And next episode, pretty much all of the turn 8 episodes, maybe even bleeding into turn 9, depending on how the German forces react. Here's why I think it'll be so interesting. You look here across the map, and there are a number of areas where we have a clear advantage, where we have the initiative, the German forces are on the back foot, and we have a real opportunity to take meaningful ground. We had poor supply situation over here. So do the Germans. The difference is we have much superior forces on the front line. You get down here towards Stalingrad, and this is going to come in the next episode, episode 15. I have been racking my brain since I saw this in the previous recording, wondering to myself, what are we going to do here? There's no German front line. We have recon and intelligence on not a single unit within 4 hexes of our entire front line of Stalingrad. How far do we push? Given the supply situation, do we push at all? The more we push, the worse the supply situation gets. If we don't push, that could give them enough time to dig in or to bring up reinforcements to establish a stronger front line. This is going to be a real dilemma for us, and we have the exact same thing down here in the Caucasus region. So I think those are going to be the types of decisions that are going to make the next 2 to 4 episodes very intriguing, because we are trying to balance the scales of supply, TOE, reinforcements, combat preparation, all of these things, with the tactical situation of having the upper hand in terms of geography, posture, and these other aspects. It will make for a couple of really good episodes, I think. All of that aside, let's start, as we always do, in the north of the map, up near the Leningrad pocket. And let's consider some options that we have. And let's actually start with battles that the Germans initiated during their ground phase. So we see up here in Leningrad, when we're looking at the pocket as a whole, they really only had attacks in 3 places. One was here, where it looks like they continue to try to break through into Leningrad proper, which I find a little surprising given the defensive situation they find themselves in. And we managed to hold against 2 separate attacks by the German forces. And you look at these and they didn't even come close, right? They're halted 750 off from our front lines, which seems like a pretty significant distance. The second area was where they again tried to force their way out of this pocket where we've isolated them. And actually, let's see, this is the, one moment. So this is the 227th and the 121st Infantry Division. So you see here we have the 121st Infantry Division. And it actually looks like that was the only attack that infantry division made. But they're trying to break through so that way these units can escape. And all 3 times they were pretty unsuccessful. Here they actually attacked even with some armor and ran into quite a bit of opposition. Just to take a quick look. Yeah, so Stugs and Martyr 2s against our T-34s. And then lastly up here, they made a counterattack against this hex where we held just fine. They did a follow-up, and again, same situation, we held just fine. A quick little note, I don't know if we touched on this when we were talking about fortification levels a couple of episodes ago. You see here that for Defender, it actually indicates what the fortification level is. And you'll see on the next attack, our fortification level actually degraded back down to 0. And again, if you imagine our descriptions of fortification levels and what they translated to into what you may have seen in pictures or cinema, etc., is these foxholes or these trenches or these concrete bunkers, right? With enough attacks, their position can be degraded, right? Trenches can find themselves so bombarded by artillery that they're just not combat effective anymore. Foxholes, similar situation. So over the span of the 2 attacks, we actually lost fortification level, and you'll see this commonly in the battle recaps. All of that aside, I think we find ourselves in a position where we did our little review of the supply summary, noted that there were not really major supply concerns up north here by Leningrad. So we will try to look to see where can we press an advantage. And I think more and more the priority has to become to knock these units out of here, because what that will actually allow is for this rail line to have 2 going and supplying up to Leningrad, which will be very useful. So let's just very beginning here start out with what does it look like with all these units attacking? It's pretty much 2 to 1. And then we say the same thing. Okay, well, what if we take everything here and attack? And here it's 2 to 1. So the question is, which of the 2 sides is it going to be more beneficial to attack from? And I'm going to argue that it'll be more beneficial for us to attack with these units down here. And the reason that I'm thinking this way is that over here on this side, this stack of units right here, it looks like we have some potential to advance them, to move them forward. So given that, I would rather than have these units stay combat fresh and ready to move south and to continue their advance and to leave minimal forces left behind here to continue this encirclement. So we're going to take from these 4 hexes all of our forces, and we're going to try in this 2 to 1 against this infantry division, and we're going to see how this goes. They held. Well, shoot. Well, okay, fair enough. Let's see if we take these units and attack. I'm going to do this again here just to put pressure on them, and they retreated. Okay, so that is some great news. So we're now going to move this unit up, and we're also going to move up this unit. So now they are even more pressed in, just to that 1 hex. And what this did achieve actually was this rail line here now does run south. So we've cleared that as a route that is open to us now. I think what we may do, we don't have enough movement points actually to get in there. We do with this unit. So if we moved there, you can also make it there. Okay. So we're going to take these 2 units and we're going to move them up to this pocket. Good. So those are there. And then we're also going to take the 372nd and move them up. Okay. If we take all those units, it's 2 to 1. One of the reasons I'm thinking about being aggressive here is that if we can push that unit back, they only have 1 hex by which they can counterattack and try to break through, and that's right here. So that's why I'm considering being a little aggressive here. So we're going to do it 2 to 1. We weren't even close. We were not even close. Okay. What we have here. Not enough. So we're going to have to leave that as is. I don't know if it's logical with any of these units to try to take them off the front. It doesn't even look like we have that option. We have some movement points here, but none of these have enough to move off. Okay. So we just have to stay as is and hope these guys can continue to hold that line. I think they'll be up for it, though. I do. I also think they know that these are probably by now a lost cause. Moving down this front line here, we see, and I think this happened last turn, where we're hesitant to move into this hex. Although, maybe it doesn't make sense to move into that hex. I was saying we were hesitant to move into that hex because then we find ourselves where we could be counterattacked by these 4 hexes here. Yeah, we're going to be hesitant. I thought maybe this ran this way, this rail line, but no. So we're not even really cutting off their supplies if we do that. So then probably the best chance for some type of counterattack would be here. That's 2 to 1, but they have a fortification level of 3. So we're going to leave that be just as it is. Okay. And we've got you off the front lines. Do we maybe swap out one of these units? So we're going to take the 18th Rifle. We're going to move you up here. And the 311th Rifle will move up. You can take their spot. 6 Rifle, I actually think I want to take off the line too. Just because their fatigue is at 45. You can stay. Makes sense for you to stay. Let's see here. I think all of those we will keep exactly as they are. And we're just going to let them all recoup in strength. Over here, we had the 30th Army that is moving up to help reinforce this side of the front. So we're going to bring them up. One of these does not have very many movement points. Which is it? Is it 247? It's a little interesting. All 3 of them, for some reason, selected together, didn't quite move up very far. But doing them separately seems to be working. Wonder why that is. You can move up here. We're going to continue moving the 30th Army up. And then we'll probably let them sit here for a turn or two to lower this fatigue that they've racked up by moving so far. Go there. And then we have this one unit that is left, and you can go up here. Alright, so that's been successful. Now let's take a look at some of these pockets here. And if we were to take all of these units and attack, yep, we still are not even close. Here it's 2 to 1 though. Fortification level of 3. So let's move you down. Let's move you down. What we're going to do now, we're going to attack. They retreated. Alright, so that worked. So now what that lets us kind of do is say, okay, what are the best units to get in here and to fill in that hole? And that was not one of them, so I don't know why I did that. There we go. Now most of these hexes now have 3. Just going to keep our distribution here kind of even. We're going to move them to that hex. So now we have 2, 2, and 3 all around. So now they are completely encircled into that one hex. And it is going to be a great day when we can take out 3 infantry divisions off the map. And all of the men that encompasses. Looking at this front here, they did push us out of this hex again. It took them 3 turns. So the first one we held, the second we held, where they actually suffered 7 armored fighting vehicle losses, which is pretty good actually. And then on the third turn, it was just too much. 42,000 against 26,000. And we were forced to retreat. So given that, do we try to get back 2-1? Oh, why not? I can think of lots of reasons why not now that I've done it. Very well. We will just hold there then. Looking elsewhere on the line, here we started to find that situation where when we were looking at the end of turn summary, right, the number of units that have supply concerns, look at this, right? So this is where we have to start having that slightly more conservative mindset of what exactly we're going to do that's in the best interests of balancing the strategic opportunity with the supply and tactical situation we're faced with. So I think with a lot of these, we're actually just going to hold this entire front line, I think. I really do think that's going to be best, because what I'm worried about is, you look at it, they have a lot of armor that has moved up here. And mechanized and mountain infantry, and it is a very substantial force that has moved up into this pocket, which long term is not going to be a serious issue for us, because remember, we have 2 armies worth of units back here focused on keeping these units encircled. So we can bring to bear 2 more armies up to this front line when needed. And in a lot of these hexes, we're really starting to regrow our strength pretty well. Let's just simulate real quick what this would look like. It's 31 combat value for attack, but it is against 127 for defense. So I don't think it's going to make sense for us to be in any type of advancing stance just to say capture this hex, right? And I actually think we're going to take one of these units, probably the one with lower fatigue here, and we're going to move this up to try and reinforce this, because they find themselves against the SS Panzergrenadier division, which has 37 combat value. My goodness. So right, that's a bit of a worry. Down here, I think we can probably, again, stay pretty static. But what we will do is we'll reinforce to get up to 3 hexes by moving this unit down here. Or three chips on a hex, excuse me. Move up the HQ just 1. Small little micromanagement bits. And then here we're going to take this army that we've brought up from the other front to plug in this hole. Right, so now we can sleep a lot better knowing that we have these reinforcements that have moved up to the front line here. And let's take just the rifle division, make it up there, then the HQ can come here, right? And again, this turn we're not taking a bunch of hexes or anything like that, but what we are now forcing them to do is they're going to get recon on us being here. They're now going to go, well, great, there's an entire army that is now filled into this spot where we have nothing defending our line, and where they can maybe sweep in south of us. It's about forcing them to try to make some difficult decisions. That's what it comes down to. The only thing that I'm contemplating as I look at this, which is dangerous, that the longer I look at it, the more thoughts I have about what we can do, is I'm wondering if it makes sense to bring down this entire stack to this crossroads, and to then bring these 2 units up here to... No. I mean, it's the right decision. It is. But I don't have anything that can defend both of these hexes. I just don't have enough. At least I don't have enough to go up against 2 infantry divisions and another SS Panzergrenadier division. It's too much. So we're going to hold. We're going to hold just as we are here. for a breath of fresh air, we look down here at this part of the Smolensk front and we go, holy crap, some of these units are actually back in supply. And you'll remember that for about 4 straight turns, all of these divisions were in a red supply status. But now you see green, 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 orange, yellow, green, green, green. So that is wonderful to see these 2 armies back in a state of supply. And with that, it's exciting, but we don't have anything that can break through any of these tiles. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. We have never had some strategy where this was going to be the point that we break through the front line. The strategy was always going to be that they would put pressure back when there was this big salient from them pushing up to Rzhev towards Moscow, that we would put pressure on the flank here and here in a bit of a pincer to try to compress their supply lines. We did that, but the intent was never to drive south with these 2 armies. So they are going to continue holding just as they are. And when we look at fortification levels, we see that they are pretty dug in with the level of 2. Up here, well, yeah, there's probably a couple of areas that we could push through, but considering we have some units with a red supply status or orange or yellow, I think we're just going to hold. And as a matter of fact, with a lot of these, what we're going to do is from each hex, we're going to take the unit that has the highest fatigue, and we're just going to pull them back. We're going to pull them back off the front line, because we need to find a way to give some of our units a break. So we're just taking the unit that has the most fatigue in each of these stacks. We're taking them off the front line. It's a 238th. This one is the 155th. And then here it's the 8th Guards. I do think, though, we will take... boy. Yeah, we will take this stack and we're going to move them up. And if we were to just hypothetically see, we're going to attack there. It's pretty strong. Those are all 1. This 247th. We're going to take the artillery unit off the front line. And we're going to bring up this rifle division instead. And if we were to attack now, it's 2 to 1. We're going to attack there. It looks like they held. That was a pretty big battle, and holy crap, those were some big losses for us. Look at this. Lost 3,000 men to their 566. Lost 71 guns. 79 armored fighting vehicles. Wow. That's not good. So what do? Well, not too much, I don't think. I think we will take one of these units off the front line again. Let's probably do this guards unit. We're actually going to take 2 off the front line. Also do that one. And then here we will take, 81 fatigue. Okay. Yeah, that's not good, but you don't have enough movement points to actually leave. Shoot. Okay, well, you're gonna have to stay then. Just gonna have to stay. Here, we're gonna keep these kind of to the rear again. Where do we have most fatigue here? Probably with this unit. Here. It's that unit. Right, just trying to get some of these men a rest off the front line, because in this situation, they're not going to be counterattacking necessarily in these hexes. So why have 3 divisions in every single hex trying to defend the line if that's the case? Down here, I do think we still have some opportunity, though, in some of these hexes to be a little aggressive. So, like here, we're gonna take advantage of this. And they held. Not sure how. Really not sure how. I think we'll take this rifle division, though. We'll move you up here to help reinforce that hex a little. Yeah. So we got that Panzer division there. Here, now this is one surely we can win. 3-1. What's going, is it maybe the air forces that the Germans are employing that's causing us so much trouble? So, let's see. Doesn't look like it. Ground losses. Yeah, it's not the air units. That's not what's doing it. Lost 36 armored fighting vehicles. And it looks like a lot of them were just their anti-tank guns that they had. When we look right here at the number of armor-piercing hits. Huh. Okay. So we have had a string of three bad results against us here. Where, again, playing that conservative card probably would have been better off for us. But sometimes you just have to try some of those things. But now I wonder if we don't try again by bringing in this tank corps. I think we will. I think we're going to try this again. We're going to take this 8th Guards here. We're going to win. We're going to push them back. Rout at the security division. Force the Luftwaffe division into a retreat. See? There we go. That'll show them. They'll think twice about trying that again. All right. Good. Good. Down here, we continue to be in a slightly precarious position where we've pushed this pocket so far that we're a little stretched. But it looks like everything here we could hold. So not terribly concerned. Over here, we find we might be able to have some luck here. Again, we find ourselves in a situation where they're in a fortification level of 3. Let's see what the math looks like. That's 3-1. So let's do this. This is part of the 16th Army. Let's assign this some armor to try to help a little. Maybe it'll end up being enough to help us push through. They already have the anti-tank brigade. Okay, very well. Let's see. And we routed them. All right, I'm glad we made that decision. And we're not going to advance. We're going to leave that just as it is. Good. Then we get down here. Surely this can be won. Yep, they retreated. Okay. And now we're here. So they have an infantry division, a Luftwaffe, and a security division. If we only take those units, that's 8.6 to 11. This guards unit, though, We move them over. It's 20 to 11. And again, let's do something similar here, right? Where, say we assign another tank brigade. Let's take this rifle division, assign to it the 21st Tank Brigade. I think we're going to give this a try. It's 2 to 1. But if we can break through, that's a big one. Let's do it. They held. I get so excited right before I click deliberate attack, and then they hold. Yeah, okay. So we're just going to hold with that. Here, 2 to 2. Nope, we're fine. Probably would have been a better move to move forces down and to try to push through here now that I look at the map. What if we bring you over here? Bring you over here. What if we take this entire stack and attack? It's 3 to 1. They retreated. All right. All right. And we move this rifle division here. This rifle division up. This rifle division. Okay. There we go. We're doing some shuffling of the line here. That's all right. That's all right. So now we're really pressing on our rel, and I think this can be a big win if we can get to this in the next couple turns. Yeah. I'm hoping this now forces these guys back, but we'll see. Down here, we have this unit that's in poor supply, and then defensive values of 1, actually 0.2, 0.8. So I think it probably makes sense for us to just push a couple of these back. Don't even really need to do 2 units. We retreated. They're routed. Good. Which now means if we move this unit up, we attack here. It's 2 to 1. 2 to 1. We move you down here. Let's attack here. They had a mountain division come to help defend, which then ultimately lost us that. Okay, but we brought over this division to help hold the line here. We attack again. No, it's just 1 to 1. Okay. Down here, I think we can probably go these 2 units and push them back. They're routed. Good. It's a police infantry division. Kind of feels like picking on someone not our size, right? We can attack here. They both retreated. Okay. Remember all that talk about being more conservative? Yeah. What's that all about? Let's attack here. No. Don't quite have enough, I don't think. It's 2 to 1. They're in poor supply. Let's do it. They retreated. Okay. Good. And continuing down the line, we're just going to hold here. Just going to keep holding. What do we have here? The Netherlands SS Infantry. I feel like we keep beating up on that unit specifically. And the Luftwaffe Field Division. Don't think we're going to do a gosh darn thing here. We're just going to stay as is. We just need to keep holding this line right here. Okay. I think all of that makes sense. Maybe this Italian infantry division, though. What happens if we go like this? It's just 1-to-1 odds. Here we got pushed back. So the question is, what do we do here? So, because we got pushed back, this now puts a couple of our units in a difficult position, right? So this unit, for example, can be attacked by 2 infantry divisions, an infantry division, a mountain division, and Luftwaffe division, and then 2 Romanian infantry divisions. So 7 or 8 divisions. 7 divisions can now attack this 1 hex, which is just never a recipe for success. That's just always bad news. Down here, it's kind of similar, right? Low supply, got that. So what we're going to actually do is pull this unit back here. We're going to have that form here. And then we're going to pull this unit back as well. So now we've got just a slightly better defensive position. We gave up this Nova Colta, but it doesn't look like we have a supply depot there, so I'm okay with that. Down here, we might have some opportunity to break through just because they're so stretched. The question is, which direction do we go? I feel like kind of hitting big here by attacking right here. Not necessarily to take territory, but just to hurt them. But we don't quite have enough to be successful. So I think what we might do... This is getting a little difficult now. So we're right about to the Stalingrad front. So I actually think we're probably going to close out the episode pretty soon here. What we're going to do first, though, is take a look at our theater boxes and see if there's anything we want to do there. And I think we're just going to leave decisions regarding this entire Stalingrad front and everything we have going on in the Caucasus region here. We're just going to leave that for next turn. And what we'll do is look at our theater boxes, close the episode at a good time mark, and then have plenty of time to discuss this mess. If you have any thoughts of what to do here, please add them in the comments. Just curious everyone's opinion of what they would have done. By the time they actually do all publish, so I don't know if I'll have time to have read them and incorporated them into the scenario, but still would love to hear what you would have done in this situation. So now we see that the Far East theater box, we are meeting our obligations. We look at the Transcaucasus theater box, we see that our ground forces actually dropped to 98%. So we're probably going to send 2 ground divisions to the Transcaucasus region. And then we see that for the northern region, we're actually meeting our obligations for both ground and air, but it's the naval element that is a little understaffed right now. This, I have found, can kind of ebb negative, positive, has less of an impact, and actually often, I don't know if this is actually tied to a mechanic, but I feel like it's often tied to the air units that you've allocated the theater box. So I'm hoping that will hop back up in the next turn or two. So we're going to do 2 divisions to the Transcaucasus region. So we're going to go to our Soviet reserve box, look at our ground units. And here, by the way, we see that we have all of these tank brigades, which we had built a little bit ago, and they're now starting to get all worked up here, right? So each of them has 32 T-34s, 21 T-70s, right? So that's starting to... Actually, I think that is at full strength there now. So what we might look to do is maybe in the next episode, we'll look to actually bring some of these reserve forces to the on-map area. But what we will send to the Transcaucasus region are going to be some infantry divisions, some rifle divisions. And I think we will take just, we'll go in order from the bottom here because these look like they're all, yes, these are all 98% TOE. So we can take these. We're going to send 2 of these. Should be enough to get that back to green. So actually, you know what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 just to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room. There we go. There we go. Okay. So next episode, we will take a look at the Stalingrad front, and we're going to figure out what the heck the game plan is there. As always, thank you so much for giving this episode a watch. Any comment, suggestion, or feedback you may have, please add them to the comments section. I'll do everything I can to get it addressed and try to answer any insights you may be looking for. If you'd be so kind as to like or subscribe to the channel, really helps get the name of the game out there, gets the content out there. And again, one of the objectives of this entire series is to try to prove that although this game is incredibly detailed, rivet counter is the expression, you don't have to read 500 pages worth of manual to get in and start enjoying it. Even after looking up all these different mechanics and such, I have maybe read 150 pages of the manual out of 520 pages of the manual. And I've been having a blast with this game, and I certainly hope all of you would too if you were to pick it up and give it a try. So that's one of the goals of the series, and to try to have a little bit of fun as we navigate this scenario together. So with that, strategy gamers, have yourselves a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye now.